This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here. Now be sure to watch Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV by subscribing on YouTube and following them on social media for all the latest Leicester City news and information. Come on you foxes!
Strap yourself in,
because we're set up, switched on and ready to go.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Yes, good evening. Just about live between Paul and myself. We've had an interesting setup here. Good evening, everybody, fellow Fox fans. How the devil are we all? Still basking in the glory of the FA Cup win? Yeah, I am. I'm not going to lie to you. I was watching it again last night, and the scenes afterwards with Top and Brendan and the squad and the, Casper getting him down. I tell you what, Ian Wright summed it up, didn't he, when he said he's jealous of our club. It made me proud, and I'm not going to say tears to the eyes every time. This is Leicester Till I Die. You thought you'd got rid of me for the off-season. You haven't. I'm still here. And we're going to be doing a series of shows called In Conversation With, the first of which is tonight. You can catch us live on Facebook, Leicester Till I Die, the group, YouTube, Leicester Till I Die TV. And if you're going to be watching on YouTube, smash those likes, give us a subscribe and follow us. That would be extremely, extremely nice of you all. And if you are living in the Twitter sphere, we are at Leicester TID.
You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV with Chris and Chums. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Pinterest. All you need for everything Leicester City FC. It's Leicester Till I Die TV. Please subscribe now on YouTube.
Indeed it is. And just going to say a very quick hello to Mad Jason. Good evening, Mad. How are you? Hope you're not too mad tonight. And I know it's an old joke and I say it every time. Somebody else who I hope isn't mad and is enjoying himself. And that's Paul. Let's bring Paul in. Good evening, Paul.
How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad.
What do they say? Never work with animals, children or technology, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a bit of a nightmare, but I've had to go back to my phone the old-fashioned way.
I tell you what, like I say, with me as well, just before I came online, I got my neighbour going like, "Are you all right? You hear smashes," and I'm having to check all the flats, and it was next door. It wasn't me. I was thinking, what the hell's dropped down? But Paul, yeah. So you're ex-Leicester, ex-Fox. These days, I suppose you'd be called sort of one of our own because you came up through the youth academy. How did you get spotted and get into football?
Yeah, it was obviously a long time ago now, and I got spotted when I was 14 playing for a local team in Birmingham. I got turned down by several clubs in the Midlands for being too small. The likes of West Brom, Villa, Coventry, even the likes of Everton, Birmingham City, all said I was too small to be a centre forward. The youth team manager at the time, Dave Richardson, liked what he seen. I was quick. I scored goals. I wasn't the biggest, so you could understand. Yeah. Obviously, back in those days, as a centre forward, you probably needed to be big and strong. But you look at Gary Lineker wasn't the biggest. Scored goals, fun. So it was a difficult thing for me to take, having been turned down by several clubs which I used to tell the boys when I was coaching at Swansea that there's always a chance. There'll always be a chance that someone will take a chance on you, and luckily enough, Dave Richardson seen something in me, and I enjoyed my spell when I was an apprentice at Leicester, starting off at 16-year-old. It was great times for me. Scored a lot of goals, and enjoyed my time as an apprentice.
And like I say, you came straight to Leicester. Was it so? You waited a long time. Were you able to well? First of all, were you able to stay at home, or did you have to move with coming to sort of a team? Because you're a Birmingham lad, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. With Leicester, what they had was there was a hotel. I can't remember. Really can't remember what it's called. It was up in Kirby Muxloe. The hotel was there, and next to the hotel there was like what you called an annex, which was a house of multiple rooms,
right,
where all the boys stayed. So I think there was probably 10, 12 of us who stayed in there. We obviously had shared rooms. We used to food across at the hotel. Really, really good mate of mine, bless his soul, Taff Davis, used to come and pick us up in the morning, drop us off after training, drop us off after home games that we used to have to go to. So it was good. I think what it done, it gave you a bit of growing up, because you were on your own, you were away from home, and you had to look after yourself. And back in those days, it was a tough environment to be brought up into. There was a lot of banter going around, and you had to be strong, you had to stick up for yourself. Where nowadays, all that is covered with the safeguarding what's got in place. So it's really difficult for young boys to have a bit of banter nowadays, because they do class banter or going over the edge, whatever. But back in the day, you had to be strong, and you had to just stick up for yourself. But it was great times. It was a lovely hotel where we stayed. We had the use of it. We had a swimming pool. So it was excellent. It was a really good facility for us.
But if football was different back in those days, I think we can say that, Paul Reid, to what you weren't. I mean, in those days, I guess I was going to say you weren't pampered, but in those days, I suppose that was almost seen as pampering, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was to a certain degree. But obviously nowadays they get so much, whatever the boys eat, they get put into food now, and they have to eat the right food. Where back in the day, you could eat what you want. Coming home from, it was always a standing joke with the boys on the bus coming back from an away game. We'd all start shouting "Chippy" to Taff Davis, and he would go, "I'm not going to swear, but if there's no chippy tonight, boys."
Yeah.
And we'd have fish and chips on the way home. But it was just, it was a really friendly, and as I said before, you had to stand up for yourself, and we did have a good camaraderie amongst all the boys who stayed there, and that showed at times when we were on the field as a group.
Yes. I mean, just to show that, back in the day, none of us have changed much, but both of us probably had more hair back in the day. I certainly did, which is why I'm wearing the hat these days. But that was you. But just sort of a quick look here. Sort of, I've got 162 appearances here, but I think your Wikipedia page might be wrong, because I think Leicester have got you down as 189.
Yeah, it's 189, and I think I scored 25 goals. Obviously, I think 162 league appearances. I think that might be, or I'm not.
It might be, yes.
But as I said before, I spoke to someone before. I think I'm in the top 100 of all-time Leicester City appearances, which is I think, as I said, I spoke to someone before. I think I'm even higher than Alan Birchinall, only by 6 games. Which is a great testament for me. It's such a legend of the club.
Yes.
And still a legend there now. So I'm quite happy with the appearances I made, and not many people can say they've made over 150.
No. I mean, especially these days, because these days with the movement there is between clubs so much, and I apologise for taking the wrong set of figures there, but for anybody to play over 100 times for a club, I think it is an achievement in itself.
Yeah, as I said, I started off 1984.
Yeah,
I had 2 years apprentice, but I signed professional when I was 17. A good mate of mine back in the day, Kevin Joblin, was 18 on the 1st of January. So Dave Richardson, Gordon Milne got us in and signed a professional contract at the same time.
Yes.
So I was 17 and Kevin was 18. I had 8 great years at Leicester. I loved the place, loved the people, loved the football club. Filbert Street, for all the boys, all the supporters who can remember, it's such a memorable place.
Oh, yes.
The crowd, especially back in the 80s, the days of standing, and it was such a great atmosphere.
I think when you look back, the old double-decker stand, I mean, and when that was packed, it was like, oh God, I mean, these new grounds are all very well, and they're all very smart, and they're very nice, etc. And I mean, when I sort of moved out of Leicester when I was 21, and I can remember sort of Blackpool going. I went to work in Blackpool, so just went to watch them as the local team, and I can remember having to sort of wipe my shoes on the way out. But they had. There was something about them, wasn't there? They had that feeling when you walked in that you just don't get these days.
Yeah, it was good, especially you run out of the tunnel back in the old Filbert Street. You've got people standing on the right hand side, the left hand side, all lower. Then obviously you've got the main stand, and then obviously the Spine Cop is where all the, I wouldn't call them idiots, but all the fanatical young.
Be careful, I was in there. Just be careful.
Idiots, but passionate supporters, I would say.
That's the word.
And they always gave me a good welcome. I scored a couple of great goals for Leicester, and always got the acknowledgement of the majority of supporters. The double-decker was something special. Not so much when we used to have to go running up and down the stairs, but when it was packed and rocking, even when the away supporters were obviously right next to the home supporters in the Spine Cop, and the atmosphere generated at such an old ground. It's unforgettable for me, and all the times I played there, I'll never forget any game. Sorry.
I think for anybody, like of a certain age, like I remember my first game was at not my first game, I never played, but the first game I went to watch was at Filbert Street. It was a friendly against Red Star Belgrade, and I could say that it was just something about those old grounds that you that you love. But you've had, now again, I apologise if any of these figures are wrong, because the first one is, but you had, well, say 189 if you say appearances for Leicester. You then went to 82 at Bradford. I mean, none of these, you weren't sort of, you were sort of stayed at clubs a while, because I mean, you had 82 at Bradford, 77 at Huddersfield, 93 at Oldham, 110, and we'll come on to Bury and the sad news about them later. But is there any regrets looking back on your career at all? They say you should never have regrets, but is there any you have?
No, none at all. My stats speak for themselves, and it's 5-5-1 league games and 58 league goals. So. Over a period of 19 years playing, I think that's not a bad stat. No. I stayed at clubs. There's obviously the clubs I went to. I think I went to Bradford on loan from Leicester, signed a 2-year contract. I would have stayed, but at the time they didn't have a manager. Neil Warnock, who was then Huddersfield town manager, came in, offered some money for me. Was a bit greedy at times and wanted some money. It wasn't a lot of money, but he decided to sell me. Same happened at Huddersfield. They wanted a player from Oldham, so I went as part exchange. Oldham, they offered me a 1-year contract. Bury offered me a 2-year contract. Coming towards the end of my career, I took that. Never got forgiven by the Oldham supporters for moving from Oldham to Bury. But I could quite like to say I've had a decent career. Wish I could have played at the top, the top level, but so one or two circumstances, didn't happen.
No,
but I enjoyed every minute, every game, every club I played for was absolutely fantastic.
You mentioned there, you played under Neil Warnock. I mean, we've all got our ideas about Ian Warnock. He's not the shine retiring type, is he? But what was he like as a manager?
Yeah, the thing with Neil, you get what you see. He's not everybody's cup of tea. Obviously, being like Notts County, close to Leicester, obviously. renowned for a long ball merchant. But you know, when he took over, when he signed me for Huddersfield, he took me high into the new stadium at Huddersfield, with then the McAlpine Stadium. He said, "Like, we've got this planned. We've got this planned. You know, I'm not classed as a long ball merchant. We've got some good players in the team. I want to play a bit and want to mix it up a little bit." And you know, he's probably one of the best managers, motivational managers that I've played under. What it is with him, you see it what it is. He'll tell you straight. You know, if you're not doing the business, he'll tell you. He made me captain, so you know that gave me a real great buzz. For the first, he was only there one season. You know, we had some real, obviously Andy Booth, centre forward. We had Ronnie Jepson, good centre forward. We had some good players, obviously Lee Duxbury, Lee Sinner I played with at Bradford, and we had a good football team. That's the season that we got promoted. Unfortunately, I missed out. I was ill for one of the games, and he asked me to play 45 minutes in a reserve game against Sheffield Wednesday away before we played Birmingham, and then the two playoff games against Brentford. I said, yeah, great. First 20 minutes, went for a tackle. My studs got caught in the ball, and I ruptured my knee ligaments, which put me out for quite a long time. So I was gutted to miss that. You know, probably the only successful time I had as a professional footballer. You know, apart from games, but you know, for winning something, which I was a bit disappointed out. I hadn't played 44 games that season, but I still managed to get a medal anyway, which I'm quite chuffed about.
You've got the memories, of course. You know, you were saying about playing at the top level, and you did have a season with Leicester in First Division. I presume that would be under was that under Gordon Milne?
No, it was under Brian Hamilton. I think Gordon Milne had moved up to the now called football technical director. So but you know, there's a long history with the likes of Brian Hamilton and myself. I remember there was myself, there was Phil Horner, there was Paul Bunce, there was Kevin Joblin. All got into the first team dressing room at Leicester. Dave Richardson got in. Said, "Listen, boys, the first team manager doesn't fancy you. You better start looking for other clubs." Played a reserve game away against Sunderland. Gave me a bit of stick for not being tough enough. So I think the next game, I think it was the old-fashioned 18 games on a Saturday morning. We played Derby County. I scored 2. I just smashed everything in sight, rightly or wrongly, tackling, kicking. And then within the space of a month, then I made my first team debut away at Southampton, which was obviously a great experience for me to be playing among some great players at the time you know, in the Leicester team. So so it just takes one manager to tell you you're not good enough by doing this. You're too soft. Right, got nothing to lose. And look at me, that's had probably, you know, I'd like to say I could play a little bit as well, but that's probably, you know, gave me a career out of football by being a bit nasty, by being you know, stuck in with the tackles, but obviously also creating stuff as well.
Yeah, you can get away with being nasty these days, could you? You know, you look at the player and you get a yellow card, but you had there's a few Leicester managers. You say you had Brian Hamilton there, David Pleat, and obviously Gordon Lee was the he came in at the end. I mean, David Pleat, you know, if you ever, and Brian Little obviously at the end there, but David Pleat, you know, if you hold a poll of unpopular managers, whilst, you know, he may not beat Peter Taylor to the accolade, he's certainly sort of in the top 3. Well, again, what was he like as a manager? What was that? I mean, we know that period as a fan, but what was that period like being within that, you know, of the club at that time?
Well, for me, obviously, with David Pleat, he came in with like some new ideas that they'll probably, no disrespect, but a lot of supporters didn't really buy into or didn't really understand at the time. But if you look at like when he was at Tottenham, we're playing wingers on the opposite side, you know, left-footed on the right-footed on the left. And I think Clive Allen scored like 49 goals in the one season, obviously. But when he came to us, I'm not going to say anything bad about David Pleat, because he taught me a hell of a lot tactically about football, and my individual game probably wasn't the supporters' cup of tea. You know, I think when he came in, we had a real good run.
We did, yeah.
the first time I remember one of the first games he took over was Crystal Palace on New Year's Day. I think the score was 4-4. I think I scored. I think Steve Wilkinson scored one. Tony Bryan scored one. I think Gary Mack got a penalty, and I scored like from more or less right out on. I think like the east stand. I think George Woodward, and it was from about 40 yards, and I put it in the net. But he done something really weird with me. Put me on the right hand side and being left footed for a game, a reserve game, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing? But obviously now, when you get a bit more experienced, I could have been better than what I was. Made some mistakes, what every player does.
Yeah.
I was young. I was like 19. I was 20-year-old. I seen on Twitter someone giving the young left back stick about not clearing a ball at one game, and they conceded a goal off it. And I'm like, these players are going to make mistakes. The local players, give them a chance. Obviously, one or two supporters didn't like me for some reason or another. But that's what supporters are entitled. They pay the money, they come to the game. But David Pleat taught me a lot tactically about my position. I had some good players in amongst me. If you look at if I played on the right hand side, you've got Ali Mocklin right back, you've got Mike Newell centre forward, then you've got Gary Mack just inside me. Yeah, and I really enjoyed that spell.
You're making me feel really old now. You know that, don't you? You're saying then that some of the fans sort of didn't take to you. I mean, the fans these days seem to sort of attach to one player. I mean, Ben Chilwell is a recent example. To me, he was. I had no problems. I liked him as a player, and he would always be in my starting lineup. And he was England left back at the time. But the fans, for some reason, just don't take to him. And I know. These days it's more sort of social media, and it's very easy to hide behind that. And, like I said right at the start, we should be stopping online abuse. But as a player, when you know that some of the section of the fans are against you, does it get you down, or does it sort of G you up?
It's difficult, really, because obviously if you're making some mistake, you back in the day, you're only getting like 10, 15,000. And hear people. And I always remember there was always one individual every single game when you come out the tunnel. I used to stand on the right hand side in every single game, no matter what I did. It was always me that was. I always remember one game, rightly or wrongly, I should say. One game we played Barnsley in a cup game, and it was muddy. The pitch was horrible. We were losing 1-0. I think in the last minute I had a header and it hit the bar. Coming off, and he's saying, "There you are. You missed that chance." And I'm like, why are people doing? You try your best for the club.
Yes.
Whatever club you play for, whatever club I play for, I always tried my best. Always wore my heart on my sleeve for every single club. But you get that. You're going to get that at the top level. Now you get it in the Premier League. But as you just said, now it's more on social media where there's a lot more people access to individual players. But sometimes, it does G you up, and you want to think, oh, hang on, I'll try and show these players. I think one game against, I think we played Portsmouth, someone was giving me a bit of jip, and I scored one from 25 yards in the top corner, and we won the game. And the next player, I could see him cheering. And you're like, well, that's what happens in football. This
is so true. Yeah, I mean, as a fan, certainly with doing these shows, you come on and it's disappointing that you've lost. But, you got to think that no player ever goes out thinking, I'm going to miss a sitter today, or, I'm going to perform badly today. And obviously, if you've got a manager, if you had like Nigel Pearson, he'd turn around and tell you where to go if you heard somebody giving abuse out.
Yeah, I think now it's just okay. You just have to get on with it and just try and play football. I think during the lockdown, you've probably seen maybe a lot of good football from players who were probably under a little bit of pressure from supporters that made it a little bit more relaxed. I've watched a lot of football over the past 18 months during the lockdown and stuff. And you do see players a bit more calm, but football is about supporters having that crowd, having that aura about wanting to perform in front of them and doing well for them. And it's great to have the supporters back in the grounds the last few weeks or so. It's been absolutely fantastic watching it and listening to live support
It is, and one of the commentators on the games, and there was booing, and he said it's even great to hear booing back. You know what I mean? And we obviously, for anybody that's watching that didn't remember, of course, Leicester did win the FA Cup this year. I'll just shout that out there for any of the non-LCFC supporting viewers. But it was great that, I know we couldn't all be there. I didn't sort of get a ticket, unfortunately, but the fact that there was some fans there that they could celebrate with made all the difference.
Yeah, definitely. And you could see, I watched the game in the house, see on the players' faces I don't know what the word is, but the way the supporters were with them, they've just won the FA Cup, and they're singing and chanting, and the players are enjoying it. Where if there was no supporters there, you wouldn't get that same vibe. I don't think. Going to when Liverpool won the league last season, and no supporters were there to witness that. For them winning that the first time in a long time. Same as Man City, maybe the same, but I'm so pleased for Leicester to win the FA Cup. They really did play well. They deserved to win, and it was great for at least some supporters could get to watch them pick that cup up. Having seen them pick the league up in 2016, and now to go and win the FA Cup, the things that only supporters can dream of.
I mean, you're only a baby, so you won't remember sort of when Leicester were in the cup final the last time. I unfortunately do. It was one of the first games I remember watching on telly. But it was a long time coming. It was a long time coming. But look, whilst you were at Leicester, and like I say, you came through the ranks, played nearly 200 games. And I was looking at a chat that you did with John Hutchinson, the historian at Leicester, and there's a few points that were sort of, if I can get this to work, he says, as always, a few points I just want to sort of pull up with you that sort of made interesting reading. And one of the things was that can we have our ball back, please? Now, what it always makes you think of sort of jumpers and coats on the street and it going into the neighbour's garden, but literally it was doing even at the ground.
Well, that's what it was. It was literally going in the neighbour's garden. So you could go back to 84 when I started. My job was to sit on the first team bench at home games. So I was in around the dressing room before the game, got to listen to the team talks. I always remember Gary Lineker always used to come just before they went out. He used to come. I used to be down in the tunnel. I don't know if people know Filbert Street. You got obviously the big bath and the showers, and then there was a tunnel down the gym and the treatment room. Just before they went out, Lineker used to always come down, look at me. Jerry Summers would be in the background. Get those legs going, Gary. He'd smirk at me, lift his eyebrows up, and then they'd go out. So it was a great experience for me coming straight from school, going into that environment, actually sitting on the bench, watching the players play at that level. It was happy, look at the likes of Gordon Strachan, Brian Robson, and then Ian Rush, Kenny Dalglish from Liverpool Day. It was absolutely fantastic. But part of my job was to obviously look after the players if they needed boots, studs. I used to have to go in and get the studs out. My job was to pump the match ball up, take it to the referee before the game, make sure it was at the right pressure. But one of my jobs was, that's how tight Leicester were in the days, so I'm only joking. Remember the old Filbert Street across I think the East Stand, there was a tiny little stand and you had hoardings above the top. Obviously advertising hoardings. If the ball went up on there and landed on them, you get the old groundsman Steve, I think his name. He used to get the ladders and go get it on the Monday. But if the ball actually went out of the ground over the stand, my job was to count the chimneys. So I used to have to count the chimneys, go out the ground, walk round, knock on the door, and basically, can we have the ball back, please? And that. I always remember, I did it a couple of times. I always remember there was one time, I think Leicester were playing West Ham or Birmingham, maybe. So ball went over. Taff was on the bench. Reedy, go get the ball. So out I went, opened the door, and there was fighting everywhere. And I'm like, no way am I going out there. So I closed the door, waited for 10 minutes, went back in and said, sorry, Taff, I can't get the ball. Well, it wasn't Taff, it was Jim Wright in them days.
Right.
Jim Wright. And sorry, Jim, I couldn't find it. And he used to go mad at me. Oh, Reedy, you knocked the right door. I said, I'm sorry, Jim, I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But it was, that was one of my jobs. And
did anybody ever say no, you couldn't have it back?
No, they were fine. I think I only got back twice. The ball that other people like obviously didn't answer the door. Maybe they might have been out or something like that.
Yeah.
But, if it got stuck, the groundsman used to get up his ladders and go get the football and bring it back. Because in them days, the footballs were few and far between, not like they are nowadays.
I know. It's a different world, isn't it? That was when I say when it it was what I would call it was for the fans. Where these days it tends to be more for the money, doesn't it? But that's a great. Sorry, if that was my back garden, and it just the old, when you see the old pictures of Filbert Street, we couldn't expand that side because of the row of houses. I certainly, being a Leicester fan, you wouldn't have got that ball back off me. I tell you that.
It did happen a couple of times. Oh, sorry, it's not in the back garden, and I know 100% it was the right chimney.
Yeah.
Back in them days, were about £50.
So every time you saw the ball going up, just so you were ready, you were counting how many chimneys were.
That was my job. I used to have to clean the dressing rooms after the game, make sure up down to Shirley, and there was another girl. I can't remember her name. I think she passed away not so long back. That was my job, looking after the first players, making sure they were finally had all the drinks. Obviously, with two who were a bit aggressive in the way they spoke to you.
Yeah,
Ramsey, Kevin MacDonald, but really great boys. I think they were just trying to make you grow up and be tough, sort of thing, But I actually shared a room with Paul Ramsey when I moved from the house in Kirby Muxloe and I went into Diggs, and I shared a room with Paul before he actually went out and bought himself a house. So I got really close to Paul Ramsey at that time.
We always say that players often get their chance because of injuries to other players, but this was maybe the start of things for you, an away trip to Valencia.
Yeah, that was that was a great trip. Obviously, I hadn't been involved in the first team, but I'd been doing well in the reserves. Hence, with Brian Hamilton, that bit of go at me. I changed the way my philosophy on thinking on how to play. We went to Valencia. We played them. I think we won either 1-0 or 2. I think it might have been 1-0. I played on the left wing, set the goal up. Alan Smith scored, and we won the game. And running out against Valencia, and there was 26,000 there. They had firecrackers and everything. It was absolutely a great experience. I thought I might have had a chance of being on the bench at the weekend's game against Southampton. At the time, Steve Moran was touch and go. I remember having a walk along the beach with Russell Osman, and he said to me, "Listen, you might have a chance of playing the weekend. Steve Moran's touch and go." So he said, and Russell was absolutely brilliant. He said, "If you do play, just go and do your stuff. Go and play your natural game. Be nasty, be horrible, work hard, and have no regrets." And they're the words he said to me. And obviously on the Saturday morning, then we were having a team meeting. Brian Hamilton named the team. Steve Moran was injured, and I got my first start against Southampton away. I had a chance, I think, after about 6 or 7 minutes, 1-on-1 with Peter Shilton. Came out really quick. I just tried to hit it hard. He split it, and that was the only one chance I really had in the game. I got beat 4-0 at that game, but.
Let's face it, it's never going to be easy to beat Peter Shilton, is it?
Great memories. Valencia trip was great.
Yeah.
We trained hard, and obviously the game on the Saturday against Southampton then was my first ever first team game.
Do you still have the shirt? That's the question. Were you allowed, or were you not allowed to keep the shirts in those days?
I asked Taff Davis at the time, was kit man. At the end of the season, I said, "Taff, any chance of having that shirt for my debut?" And no problem. I've still got it up there. Unfortunately, I've been meaning to get it framed for a few years, but I just haven't got around to doing it. But I will do before it gets too long. But it's a cherry shirt, that is.
Brilliant. We'll come back to my questions in a second, but Melina here's got a question for you. Paul, who is your favourite Foxes footballer in the current squad?
Oh, crikey. I tell you, the one really excites me when he gets on the ball is Harvey Barnes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would say that. Young boy, yes. But he's creative. He goes at plays. He can score with his left foot. He can score with his right foot, and he's one who really excites me. But I've sort of got a little thing for the left back. Is it Thomas?
Luke Thomas.
Thomas, 19-year-old, played in the cup final. Relaxed, calm, collective. But probably the one I like to see most is Harvey Barnes when he gets on the ball. I played with his dad, Paul. Obviously, Paul was at Notts County at York. I played with Paul when he was at Bury. But I think he even says himself that he's got a lot more ability than what himself had. But I'm really disappointed that he's injured and not going to be involved in the Euros, because I think he would have been in the squad for the Euros. He's probably my one at the moment for Leicester.
Yeah, I mean, he is an exciting player, and it makes you think sort of, had him and James Justin been fit at the end, where we might just have been that one step further. But yeah, like you say, exciting prospect. But you were in your day, and you actually got goal of the season one time. Now, unfortunately, I have trolled everywhere on YouTube. It was 1987-88 against Blackburn Rovers. I can't find it again. I think that's the fact that the social media wasn't around in them days. But talk us through it. Goal of the season again. That's another amazing accolade to have.
Well, sometimes on a Saturday night, I'll put it on. It is on there. I watch it.
Is it? Right. You're gonna have to send me the link, because I couldn't.
Paul Reid, Leicester City. I think the goals come a goal against Swindon, or 2 goals against Swindon, and then the Blackburn goals. But that was some to get a goal of the season away. I think it was the away goal that's ever been won at that time.
Right.
By the Leicester. It was absolutely fantastic. I remember going build up to the game. David Pleat dropped us off 5-10 minutes away from the ground, made us walk to the ground. And at that time, Blackburn were flying in. They were at the top. And we were on a good run. I remember, I think the first goal I scored was off a corner. He came out the edge of the box, so put it into the top corner. But then the second goal, then I can't remember. I think it was Nicky Cross, Gary McAllister Cross. He played it out to me on the halfway line, my own half. I just went on the outside, drove inside, kept going. I think I left Scott Sellers in my wake, and I spoke to Scott not so long back, and he still remembers it to this day. And then just got to the edge of the box and just put it in the corner. Great memory. A great goal. That I really loved that. And we had quite a good following going up that day as well. Pitch was horrendous, bobbly, muddy, rainy, but it was a great game. I actually got man of the match as well.
Great.
And to get obviously the supporters' goal of the season is phenomenal. I've got a big massive silver plate in my cabinet as well. So it was really a great thing for me to achieve at the club.
I think when you get something like that from the supporters, you forget the odd guy that boos you and moans, and you think, that shows you.
That's what footballers are like. You are going to have, as I say to players, the young boys coming up now. You're not going to be good every single game, every minute of every game. You're not going to be. You are going to make mistakes, but you'll do something, and 9 times more people will remember you for when you've done that thing. Do you understand? So, and it's a great memory for me to remember that goal, although it was God knows how many years ago. It's still a great feeling to score for your, class them as my hometown club, because it was the club I played for first, and they're always special to me. So,
yeah. If you talk to Leicester fans, there's certain games that they'll always remember. obviously the recent one, the FA Cup final. There's the quarter final against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, playoff final wins, etc. But for those of us of a certain age, there's that Oxford game when it was like there was a DVD. Well, I say DVD. It was a video back in the day of the Oxford game there. We stayed up, little to know that we would eventually still go down, obviously years later. But that's it, amazing atmosphere it must have been at that game. And so much riding on it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I think, I'm not 100% sure whether it was the game before or a couple of games before. We went to Ipswich away, and I scored in the first 5 or 10 minutes, and it was great. And we were like, oh, mate, this is it. We ended up getting beat 4-1. And then obviously the Oxford game, no one needs to tell you how important that game was for supporters, the club, and for players as well. Because players care as well as the supporters. But leading up to that game, we didn't really do a lot different. The digs I used to stay in with my old landlady and landlord, Alan and Vera Lunn, who were massive supporters of the club, looked after many players during their time. During the week, Kevin Russell used to stay with us on a Monday, Tuesday. He'd go home on a Wednesday. He'd come back Thursday, go home Thursday. Then he'd stay on a Friday before the game. But every Friday, towards the end of that season, he used to go and get his haircut around a little hairdresser. We used to live on Saffron Road. Little barbers around the corner by the Queensbury pub in Wigston, or Oldby, sorry. So Kevin Russell used to get his haircut every Friday. Not that he needed it, but he used to go to Mitchell because we started getting him out. So I always remember on the Friday we went round. The barber didn't charge him. Went into the game.
That's why he went every Friday.
Every Friday for his haircut. Obviously went into the game on the Saturday. Great support. Fans were absolutely phenomenal. Again, I've seen clips on YouTube and whatever. And to win the game 1-0, and knowing that a club that I wouldn't say I hate them, but disliking West Brom. The area where I'm from.
I understand that. Yeah.
They're all West Brom, so it gave me great pleasure. Is getting my dad in the car after the game, driving back to Birmingham, back to the local, walking in with my Leicester City tracksuit on. All the West Brom fans always used to speak to me, heads down, looking away from me. Me and my dad, a few beers, celebrating. It was absolutely fantastic, and it was just a great day. I think the fans loved it, the players enjoyed it, and that's what it's all for. Is for the supporters, because for them to go, for such a big club like Leicester to go down at that time, having been a bit struggling at times, would have been, you don't know what would have happened, but it was so easy for us as players to perform on that day and to actually win the game and keep the club up. And then from then on, obviously the following season, Brian Little came in and done work wonders over the next few years. So that was the start of hopefully Leicester going on to be on. You said they went down again, but that might have been the start of it. So. Yes.
Yeah, we always say following Leicester is a roller coaster ride. You take the downs with the ups. Can I just say, I've got to give you total credit there for the bravery of walking into a Birmingham pub full of West Brom supporters in your Leicester tracksuit. Respect to you, sir.
They were all my mates from school, and all my
were they? Oh,
they're all there, and they supported West Brom, and they supported West Brom, and there's one or two others, one or two supported Wolves, but walk in there with my Leicester tracksuit on, and because it was my dad, really. Come on, Paul, we're going to the George, Worley. So we went in, and it was just great, knowing that I think at the time Roses had gone man down. They had a hand sent off early in the game. Which really went against us. But we could have had a few games. I've watched one or two highlights of the game, and we could have had a few more. But luckily for us, Tony James stuck his big toe on it, ended up in the back of the net.
Did you have to buy a round though when you were in the pub? That's the question. They make you say, you've won, mate. You can buy us all around.
I think I bought a couple.
That's good. Now we did touch on earlier, and Craig who's joined us here, and we did touch on about sort of your route into the game and what have you. But how was the scouting system back in those days?
It was just a case of being lucky, basically. You know, I think they had scouts from all over, and I always say to players, if you're good enough, you'll get scouted.
Yes.
You know, if you're good enough for any club, you know, you'll get scouted. You know, and that's the way it is. Nowadays, you do get a lot more scouts all over the country, not all over the country, but all over the world. Where back in the day, you probably used to have a couple in Birmingham, a couple in Coventry, maybe a couple in Northampton, especially where Leicester were. There was a couple up in the northeast. We used to get a couple of players. And obviously, Kevin Joblin came from the northeast, so there were scouts in place at that time. But obviously not as many as there are nowadays. You know, they scout players from all over the world. They do now. And
did you know that, you know, were you always thought like the scouts were going to be there, or was it, you know, you didn't know?
You just go and play. You know, you just go and play football. And you know, there was a couple of West Brom scouts. I went training with West Brom, training with Villa, training with Birmingham. Had a training game at Everton, and they just said, you know, you're just too small. Although I could score goals, I was quick. Just it didn't, you know, that's what football's about. And I always tell people, football's all about opinions. You know, opinion on a player could be good, could be bad, and someone might like you as a player. I mean, you know, Neil Warnock signed me 3 times, so he must have liked something in me. Yes, I could tackle. Yes, I could, you know, put a bit about, but I could also create goals for the likes of, when I was just for the likes of Andy Booth and Ronnie Jepson and, you know, players like that. So I could create goals as well as score them. Yeah.
And, you know, your career came to an end. Like you say, you know, we mentioned the clubs that you've been to. You did a bit of coaching afterwards.
Yeah, when I finished I finished down in Swansea. I played non-league in the Welsh Premier League for a couple of years. Avon Lido for a couple of years. And then I sort of went into coaching with Port Talbot in the Welsh Premier League. Done my A licence. We had a really successful time with them. You know, we got into Europe, played in the Europa League. We got into the Welsh Cup final, and I had 5 really, really good years. But then the manager at the time, for some reason or other, wanted someone with a bit more experience. And I'm thinking, how could you have anybody with a bit more experience? I played 500 games, got my A licence. We've had 5 successful years. But that's, you know, that's football. You know, again, it's all about, he wanted someone else to come in, which was great. When Avon Lido was manager, didn't like it, wasn't ready for it. At the time, I was still working for Royal Mail. Finished off with Royal Mail, got a full-time coaching role with Swansea City, which I loved. When they went down, I was still there. And they made me redundant then after 2 years, unfortunately. So looking for another job, I ended up going to Forest Green Rovers as youth phase under 16 league coach. Absolutely fantastic club. Can't say anything bad against them. Absolutely fantastic. Loved my time there. But unfortunately, I was spending a hell of a lot of money travelling, and just wasn't financial viable for me to carry on doing it. I did go for the under 18s job. Didn't get it. But I think if I'd have got that, I maybe would have given it another year of, you know, trying to afford to do it, basically. But again, wasn't experienced enough for the under 18s job. Only certain people will tell other people why I wasn't experienced enough for it, having worked at senior football. But anyway, that's by the by. But absolutely fantastic club, a club that's going to go places. They've got a good chairman, and then I had to pack that in now, so I just drive a van now, deliver parcels for Hermes, which I absolutely love.
Oh, I know to blame now if my order doesn't come through. This obviously this season's been a funny season, not only because of the COVID, but sort of for the ESL and all these, you know, talk about these big 6, super 6, greedy 6, whatever you want to call them. But the thing that sustains English football, and what I love about English football, and I know, and I apologise because I know, you know, you Swansea hold a place in your heart, but the fact that they went out to Brentford, I think the fact that you've got a team like Brentford are going to be playing in the Premier League, and we've had the likes of Blackpool before. It's that pyramid and that chance that every team has, or the dream to go forward, is what makes football. But on the downside, with everything that goes on, things go wrong. One of the clubs you were at, over 100 games and 9 goals, was Bury, and I worked in Bury for quite a few years. So I popped down to Gig Lane, not often, but a couple of times. But that I know they're sort of the coming back and starting right back down at the bottom level again. But it breaks my heart, even as a Leicester fan, to see these clubs go out of business. Clubs that back in the day, they were probably sort of, part of the big 6 and 10 in their time.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I love my time at Bury. I had 3 years there, and it was a great time. Not the biggest fan base, but considering the area that they are in, there's no wonder. Within you've got Man City, Man United, you've got Bolton, you've got Blackburn, you've got Burnley, Oldham just down the road, Rochdale. So it is one of those clubs that's never going to have a 10, 20,000 fan base.
Yeah,
not yet anyway. But no, it really hurt me, Bury, because again, it's got a place in my heart, like every club I played for. There were good supporters. They supported the club. Good, the backroom staff. Obviously, Gary Neville's, and Phil Neville's mum and dad worked at the club for years. I think Jill was a secretary. Neville was the not merchandise. What do you call it?
Marketing.
Marketing manager. And they've done a hell of a lot for the football club, the pair of them. But it really sad, the demise of them. I think there was a time when I played there, all the players, we all put some money into the club. We all bought seats where you could have your name on the seat. But it just hurts me, because you look at the area and you look at the amount of money in that area of certain other clubs. Could they have helped them out? And if they could have done, why didn't they?
Yes.
So I think there was a time when I played there was talk of both Phil and Gary putting some money into the club, obviously with their parents working there. That didn't happen for some reason or another. But you just think, could like the big boys, Man City, Man United, whatever, right? Sorry, Bury, it's a couple of million quid. That'll see you right. That'll save you in the league. Yeah. And not just the football club and for the supporters, but for the poor players who were there.
Yes.
Who were playing and had to leave and weren't getting an income. Because I've been there. I've been a player who wasn't getting income, not being paid, having to worry about paying your mortgage and paying your bills. So it does happen, and you do feel sorry for those players. But we just look at what you mentioned about the big 6 wanting to move. Why couldn't one of the big ones just give some few quid to Bury to save them?
Totally agree. Because in these days, maybe not for the big 6, but for clubs like the Leicesters, the Aston Villas, the Evertons, and those sort of clubs, size-wise, we get a lot of players from the lower league clubs. Let's be honest with you, if it wasn't for lower league clubs, we wouldn't have a Jamie Vardy now.
That's the thing, you see. That's where your bread and butter is, and Vardy's a prime example. Playing non-league football and getting a transfer for £1 million. I think it was after Leicester won the FA Cup. I think you've got Mark Albrighton, you've got Jamie Vardy, you've got Wes Morgan, Cassius Schmeichel, and there was another one. So the 5 of them cost less than £1 million.
Christian Fuchs, I think it was, yes.
Christian Fuchs, that's it.
Yes, yeah.
They've all won the league, and they've all won the FA Cup. It cost less than £1 million. So the lower league clubs, it does offer a pathway for players to so-called make the big time, because that's what that's the big time. Everybody wants to play in the Premier League, not just for the money, but for the association of the supporters and the club and the things you can do, the things you can try and win. The feeder club, so-called feeder clubs, the lower clubs, you will get players who are going to come through and make that impact in the Premier League. But again, it's all about being spotted at the right time, being in the right place at the right time. That's why I always say to players, if you're good enough, you'll get there.
Yeah.
If you're good enough, you'll.
And let's be honest, it wasn't that long ago in our own history that we had to sell players to survive. It's how we kept going as a club, was the bringing these players through, the Alan Smiths and Gary Lineker's, two people, names that people know, but, getting these players, and we would sell those every year, and it kept the club going.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect, but that's what Leicester were like back in the day.
Yeah,
they had to try and produce players from within. They had to try and pick up bargain players, but obviously now that's completely changed. They can go out and pay good money. But again, me and my son came up to watch. I think it was Atletico Madrid in the quarterfinal of the Champions League a few years back. One of my best mates in Leicester, I still speak to him quite well, Lee Williamson, who looks after one or two of the boys. I think Casey McAteer, he looks after Casey and always rings me and asks for advice, regarding Casey's, what he should do and stuff like that. But we went up there, and the things what the owners have done for the club is absolutely amazing. Not just the club, not the football club, but it's well documented. The community, the Leicester community, like the likes of the hospital and the people who are less fortunate than others, and they are truly football people, but I think they're Leicester people as well, and they love the club. They love putting their money into the club, and at this moment in time, they're doing really, really well, and they've got a great manager in Brendan Rodgers who will continue to do good things. Fingers crossed for Leicester.
Yeah, just as a reminder to people, let's just play this and remember how many...
It didn't happen in 49, 61, 63 or 69 when they reached the final. But the class of 2021 have delivered. Leicester City are FA Cup winners at last and are history makers at Wembley.
Leicester Till I Die TV, home of the FA Cup winners.
Oh, it sounds good, that. I'll never get bored of playing that. I'm going to make the most of that for the next 12 months. But we have to remember where we came from. I mean, you were at Swansea. Were you there when Brendan was there? Did you pass across at all?
Yeah, pass. I was working with the within the youth team, and it was funny. The way that he used to work was dropped down into the 23s, into the 18, into the youth team, because you had to play football like the first team. You have to get the ball down, you have to create space, you have to play through the lines, and it was a great, fantastic time. Brendan used to live just, obviously not in my little area, but probably 5 minutes from where I lived, in a much bigger house, I might add.
Of course.
He used to go to the local pubs, have food and stuff with his wife and things like that. So I remember seeing him down at the in the little square where I live. I think he'd just going to move to Liverpool, and I was just going to go to Avonlida as manager in the Welsh Premier League. So I wished him all the best, and I said, I just took a little job, but he knew where the club was, knew where it was, but he was a really nice guy, down to earth. Used to mix with there's a lot of Swansea supporters who are my friends who live in the area, and but such a nice boy, down to earth, knows his football and knows how to play the game properly.
Yeah, and I think the message is for Leicester fans, certainly for myself, as I say, who's not far off his pension, shall we say, but it is enjoy the time, because things do change in football, and as I said recently, it wasn't that long ago that Manchester City were playing Leicester City in the third tier of English football.
Yeah, look, that's the thing. You have got to live for today, and what's happening at Leicester over the last 5 or 6 years has been absolutely phenomenal. So the supporters have got to embrace it. It's going to continue. You would hope it's going to continue, but just going like exactly what you said about Man City. I remember going to Man City, playing for Oldham in the second division. They were at the top of the league, and Oldham, we were mid-table. We went there, we beat them 2-1. I scored one, set one up. But just shows you how far they've come. And Leicester are going to do the same, more or less. Not to the heights of them, but they won the league. They won the FA Cup. So that's a start.
Yeah.
So
they haven't won the Champions League. I'll just remind them of that if there's any Man City fans watching.
Yeah, I'd say to the supporters, embrace it, and embrace it as long as it's going to last. For now, hopefully, it's going to last for the next 5, 6, whatever, 10 years, and Leicester are going to be a top 6 team continuing from now on. And the way that Brendan goes about it, and the way that the team play, fingers crossed they can do that.
It would be absolutely brilliant, as indeed you have been, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm conscious we've probably kept you longer than I thought we would do, but that's a sign that it's been a really, really interesting chat. You've been on the show obviously a few times, and hope to get you on again. But it's been great, sort of talking in conversation with you one-to-one here. Thanks for taking me down memory lane. Thank you for making a happy man feel very old. And hopefully we can talk again soon.
Yeah, I enjoyed. I think we obviously with me being on, it gives obviously the younger supporters of the club like a little bit of history on what it used to be like. Back in like the 80s and the early 90s. So hopefully they can. They got that Paul Reid. He was a nice boy. He came across really well, and I've always done that. I've always come across as, I'm friends with one of people, and I've said this. I've done a little thing, the Matt Piper podcast, and he said best advice someone gave to me was from my dad, and he always said to me, never refuse an autograph. Because there'll be one day when no one wants it, and he's 100% right. So that's why I've always got time for people. If people want to speak to me, I wouldn't walk away. Or I don't want to speak to you. Where do some players who do that, and I'm thinking, well, why do you do that? Just be humble, be friendly, and be nice to people. Yes,
like you say, it's a short time at the top, but a long time at the bottom.
Definitely. When you have to work by mail delivering the rain. And you're playing in front of 20,000, that's when the shit hit the fan. Sorry for swearing.
That's okay. We say a lot worse than that on here. Paul, it has been brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will speak again soon. Thank you so much. And stay safe, and all the best to you and your family.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Take care. Cheers. Thanks so much to Paul there for joining. I tell you what, like I say, it does make a happy man feel very old. But I tell you what, I have, I remember those times. That was me, David. I do apologise, mate. I've just seen your message come up here. Didn't get a chance to fit it in, so I do apologise. We will have Paul back on again soon, though, and. We've got this coming up
on YouTube and your favourite podcast platform. This is Leicester Till I Die TV in conversation with
Julian Watts. He will be in on Thursday, and we'll be having a chat one-to-one with him. Julian, as you know, does a few shows for us as well. Once again, my thanks to Paul. Thanks for joining in. Remember, if you want to catch up on this after the show, you can go and subscribe on YouTube. Please give the video, smash the likes, hit that notification button so you don't miss the show, and give us a subscribe. And if you want to catch up on us and you want to listen to us rather than look at us, and with my face, I don't blame you. It's an advantage. Amazon Music, Google, Apple iTunes, Spotify, and Anchor, to name just a few of the podcast platforms we are on. Check us out there. Just ask if you've got a smart speaker, Leicester Till I Die, the podcast. Brilliant. Thanks again to Paul. We'll see you on Thursday at 7. Thanks for watching, guys. Good night.
Be sure to watch Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and follow all their social media platforms for all the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye, and see you next time.
Some people are on the pitch, they think it's all over. It is now.